Jasper mayoral candidate Wayne Sheeter is outlining his vision for the city. We'll tell you more. Plus, local shoppers have a new place to go for groceries now, and new Huntingburg Chamber Director Elizabeth Bartle is tonight's guest on Inform. All of that and much more is up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Hello, I'm Bradford Raths. We begin with a pair of fishermen who escaped injury after their boat capsized in Huntingburg Lake. Just before 5:10 p.m., Indiana conservation officers were called to Huntingburg Lake where the capsizing was reported. Conservation officers say a pair of bow fishermen were fishing along the south shore of the lake about 150 yards away from shore when they noticed their boat was beginning to capsize. Conservation officers say both men were wearing life jackets and were able to stay with the boat until help arrived. Two conservation officers launched a boat to pick up the fishermen who had been getting help from Scott Kendall prior to officers' arrival. No injuries were reported, and it is not clear what caused the boat to capsize. Conservation officers continue to recommend that you wear your life jacket while enjoying any sort of activity out on the water. Police have arrested a person of interest following a shooting in northern Crawford County that left an English resident with minor injuries. At around 1:10 yesterday morning, authorities say Crawford County Dispatch received a 911 call stating that 43-year-old Robert Yockey of English had been shot in the abdomen. Investigators learned that Yockey, seated in the living room while visiting a friend at a residence in the 700 block of East 5th Street in English, heard a knock at the front door. Police say Yockey told the visitor to come in, at which point the door opened and a round was fired at Yockey from a handgun. Yockey told authorities he did not see who the shooter was. He was taken to IU Health Hospital in Paoli, where he was listed in good condition. Now, Indiana State Police say a person of interest has been identified, but no further information had been released as of news time. Police say this case remains under investigation, and anyone with additional knowledge of the shooting is asked to call the Indiana State Police Jasper Post at 812-482-1441. Jasper mayoral candidate Wayne Sheeter continues to put together his vision for the city if he is elected. Sheeter says he sees the role of mayor as being a public servant rather than being a politician. His main ideas have to do with economic development, government spending, and engaging youth in the community. Sheeter says Jasper has done fairly well with economic development in recent years. However, he is raising concerns about spending under the current administration of Republican Mayor Terry Seitz. Sheeter says efficiency with local government spending is key to building Jasper's future.
Jasper has always been a city where efficiency has been very important. I think from the business standpoint, if you look at our businesses, they've survived because of their ability to adapt to changing markets and incomes and capital, and I think the city will have to do that too. And being, again, understanding the role of tax dollars in governance, it is going to be a challenge, but I think it's a challenge I'm up to.
Now, Sheeter does have high praise for some of the current economic development efforts, including repurposing older factory buildings and tax abatement for bigger businesses. However, Sheeter says there is one element missing that he would pursue if he was elected.
There's been talk about the character of Jasper, variety of Jasper, bringing people into Jasper, and when you really get down to it, the small business atmosphere, whether you're talking retail, commercial, restaurants, whatever, small businesses can bring that character to a city. And so I think, as mayor, I would like to look at bringing some of the economic incentives to small businesses and support.
Sheeter and other Democratic candidates in Jasper have also continued to voice their concerns about the TIF district that the city approved last year. Sheeter says TIF is a good idea when used responsibly.
Will the revenue follow that? Where if you use it for infrastructure for business, for example, if a business wants to go into a blighted area, you have a TIF there, you use that money for infrastructure, that business then has a better chance of survival. But if that business doesn't survive for some reason, the infrastructure improvements are still there to attract new businesses.
As for repurposing older buildings and tax abatements, Sheeter says the current abatement program does need a few adjustments.
We need to look at, as far as the tax abatement point system, perhaps giving more points to businesses and companies that do go in and repurpose the old building, so that you encourage, for example, let's take the desk company. You're encouraging private investment in that business or that building, repurposing it to get tax abatement. And so in the point system to get tax abatement, I think that's very important, that we look at giving more points for companies that go into these older buildings and repurpose them.
On a final note, Sheeter is continuing to tout the creation of a mayor's youth council to get younger generations more engaged in local government. Sheeter says the idea is not new to the city, as it was previously used during the administration of former Mayor Jack Newton. As for his biggest goal for November, Sheeter says it's to get his name out to the public along with where he stands on the issues. He also says he's open to a debate or two between himself and Mayor Seitz on the issues prior to the November election. One of the projects from last year's Du Bois County Leadership Academy is now nearing its completion. Jasper Mayor Terry Seitz says the final 3 call boxes are being tweaked along the upper portion of the Jasper River Walk. The first 3 on the lower portion were up and running back in October of last year. Seitz says final testing is being done this week on the 3 new boxes. Meanwhile, Jasper Police Chief Mike Bennett says the boxes will serve a very useful purpose.
They are going to be a big benefit, not only to us, but to people that utilize the Riverwalk. Obviously, that's what they were intended for. Hopefully, we never have to use them, but if we do, they're there.
Now, the project was originally proposed by Jasper resident Josh Gunselman as part of his work with the Du Bois County Leadership Academy. Work got underway last year with the goal of giving people using the Riverwalk the ability to call for law enforcement or other emergency help should an emergency arise. Seitz is hopeful that a dedication ceremony for the boxes will be held sometime in the near future. On a somewhat related note, the Jasper Dog Park opened to the public today for the first time, and that project also originated from the Du Bois County Leadership Academy. Local shoppers now have another option for buying their groceries. This morning, Ruler Foods held a ribbon cutting for its newest location on Jasper's north side. Several company officials were on hand, including JC Foods Incorporated Division President Paul Bowen. Bowen says Jasper was a perfect fit for what his company was looking for as they searched for areas to expand to.
I've always admired this community. The fact that, one, it's a beautiful community, it's such a gracious community, and it's a growing city, and we felt like this is a place we need to be.
Jasper Mayor Terry Seitz and Jasper Chamber Director Nancy Eckerly also took part in this morning's ribbon cutting on behalf of the city. Now, the Jasper Ruler Foods store has been in the works since early March of 2013. Its opening was delayed several times by construction issues and controversy surrounding signs the store wanted to use, among other problems. Ruler Foods is a division of JC Food Stores Incorporated, and the Jasper location is the 35th Ruler store that's opened across 6 states. Other Ruler Foods stores can be found in Lagodi and Bloomfield locally. Speaking of mayors, Mayor Terry Seitz and Huntingburg Mayor Denny Spinner took an opportunity to connect with the younger generation. Today, the Du Bois County Emerging Leaders hosted the 2 mayors for a question and answer session at Current Blend in Huntingburg. Questions ranged from leadership philosophy to retention of business to challenges facing the county 20 years down the road. Mayor Seitz started the event by talking about how successful Du Bois County has been for the younger generation to date, referencing a recent study published in the New York Times. Seitz says the success of youth in Du Bois County boils down to 4 different things: expectation, cultivation, motivation, and implementation.
I think we have great expectations of those who are in the county of having a sense of accomplishment. I believe that we have still a strong family life that cultivates that. I think that creates that motivation that hopefully by the time that student is involved, kind of self-motivates, and then they have to literally implement. And that occurs through a secondary education, college, etc.
Meanwhile, of those, Spinner says expectation has been the key driver.
There's a high expectation. There's a level that moves you from that education at the local level in our high schools into the anticipation that you can find a good job. You can find a job here that is high paying. And so that expectation and motivation that the mayor spoke about is part of what we are as part of our life here. So I think that we kind of take that for granted sometimes.
As for business in the future, Seitz says the best way to help is to attract workers through creating more culture in the cities for young people. Spinner says the main challenge will be the low unemployment rate locally. Both mayors pointed to technology as the biggest concern for the future, but also as the greatest opportunity for future growth. Now, today's event was a full house at Current Blend, and this marked the second major event of the year for the Du Bois County Emerging Leaders. And finally tonight, the Indiana Department of Transportation says scheduled closures of State Road 61 in Winslow and State Road 161 between Holland and State Road 68 have been postponed. INDOT says the State Road 61 railroad crossing repairs in Winslow have been tentatively rescheduled to early next month. They say more information will come in the coming weeks as railroad crews confirm a new closure date. Meanwhile, a chip and seal project on State Road 161 between State Road 68 and Holland has been postponed, and there is no new date scheduled at this point. The department says chip sealing of State Road 64 between Huntingburg and Birdseye is still set to begin this upcoming Monday. Traffic will be detoured for about a week over US 231, I-64, and State Road 145. Now, a reminder, loose stone will be on the highway temporarily during the initial cure of the asphalt, and NDOT says the highway will be open to local traffic only. Local drivers are urged to slow down and allow additional space between vehicles to prevent stone chips from damaging windshields or paint on cars. After the chip seal has cured, crews will sweep the highway to clear away the loose stone and apply pavement markings. All right, coming up after the break, more in your forecast, and later on, our first talk with Huntingburg Chamber Director Elizabeth Bardle. We're back after this.